There's a saying you may have heard: don't tell people your problems. 80% don't care, and the other 20% are glad you have them. While this might sound harsh, there's a valuable truth beneath the surface. We live in a world where everyone is fighting their own battles. Life can be overwhelming, complicated, and frustrating. But unloading our burdens on others doesn't always lead to support. Sometimes it leads to judgment, pity, or even gossip. While it's important to seek help when necessary, we must also learn to differentiate between venting and victimhood, between vulnerability and dependency. Most people are too busy with their own problems to care deeply about yours. It's a truth that can feel disappointing at first, but once you understand it, it becomes liberating. Every person you meet is carrying their own burdens. Worries about finances, relationships, health, careers, or even internal struggles no one else sees. People are often caught up in their own mental noise, navigating their own chaos, and trying to stay afloat in their own lives. This doesn't mean people are cold or unkind, it simply means they are human. Emotional bandwidth is limited, and while someone might listen out of politeness or fleeting concern, that doesn't mean they're invested in your healing or equipped to help. When you share your problems indiscriminately, you may assume you're forming connections or seeking comfort. But to others, especially those dealing with their own challenges, your vulnerability might feel like an added weight they didn't ask to carry. Some might smile and nod, while internally they are just waiting for their turn to speak or thinking about their own to-do list. Others might dismiss your concerns, compare them to their own, or offer shallow advice that does more harm than good. This doesn't make them bad people. It just means their emotional resources are being stretched already. What's more, in constantly broadcasting your struggles, you run the risk of becoming someone who is known more for their problems than their character or potential. People start to associate you with difficulty rather than strength. And that perception, once formed, is hard to undo. It can affect relationships, opportunities, and the way you treat it in both personal and professional settings. The truth is, while empathy exists, it's not always deep, lasting, or unconditional. Especially not from those who haven't earned your trust or haven't built a genuine bond with you. Understanding this helps you shift your mindset. Rather than expecting the world to carry your load, you begin to look inward. You learn to be more discerning about when, where, and with whom you share your struggles. You begin to value emotional independence, not isolation, but the kind of strength that comes from realizing that the person most responsible for solving your problems is you, and that realization becomes the foundation for self-respect, resilience, and personal growth. Oversharing your struggles often leads to judgment or gossip, not help. While it may feel natural to open up when you're in pain or under pressure, doing so without careful consideration can often have unintended consequences. Not everyone you speak to has your best interests at heart, and not everyone is equipped to respond with empathy, wisdom, or discretion. In fact, the more you share, especially with casual acquaintances or people who haven't earned your trust, the more you expose yourself to being misunderstood, labeled, or even used as a topic of discussion behind your back. Is the difference between being honest and being unfiltered. In trying to relieve emotional stress, some people fall into the habit of telling anyone who will listen about every problem they face. Personal issues, conflicts, insecurities, regrets. This might give a short-term feeling of relief, but it can quickly turn into long-term regret. People often remember what you tell them in moments of vulnerability, and those memories don't always stay private. A comment shared in confidence can become tomorrow's gossip in someone else's mouth, twisted or exaggerated beyond your control. You may find that what you shared sincerely in pain becomes a weapon others use casually or maliciously. Moreover, constant oversharing can affect how others perceive you. Instead of seeing your competence, resilience, or talents, They begin to associate you primarily with instability or drama. Even those who don't intend harm might unconsciously begin to see you as weak, overly emotional, or incapable of managing your own life. This perception can erode respect and even trust, particularly in professional or leadership settings. People might become hesitant to involve you in responsibilities or opportunities, fearing you'd bring emotional baggage with you. It's also worth noting that some individuals use other people's problems to elevate themselves. When you share your struggles openly, there will always be those who compare their lives to yours and take comfort in your difficulties because it makes them feel better about their own. They may not offer compassion, but they'll quietly savor the sense of superiority. That's not support. It's exploitation of your vulnerability for their emotional gain. Ultimately, when you speak about your problems, it should be with those who have earned the right to hear them, those who have shown they can be trusted, those who won't judge you, and those who are capable of helping or listening with care. Oversharing is not the same as healing. It often adds layers of damage by inviting the wrong people into your private pain. And once those words are out, they can't be taken back. So it's not about staying silent. It's about being selective. Your story deserves to be protected, not passed around. Constantly talking about problems can turn you into a complainer, not a problem solver. When we face difficulties in life, our first instinct is often to express what we're going through. There's a natural human tendency to seek comfort by vocalizing our frustrations, disappointments, and fears. And while occasional venting can be healthy and even necessary, there's a fine line between expressing emotion and developing a habit of complaining. When talking about your problems becomes your default response to adversity, it starts shaping not only how others see you, but how you see yourself. The more you repeat a story of struggle without actively working toward a solution, the more you reinforce a narrative of helplessness. The words we speak about our lives have power. They influence our mindset, our emotional state, and our sense of agency. If you constantly say things like nothing ever works out for me or I can't catch a break, you start to believe it. And once that belief takes root, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You stop looking for solutions because you're too busy describing the problem over and over again. You become emotionally stagnant, living in the echo chamber of your own frustration. From the outside, people begin to notice. They might stop taking your complaints seriously because they hear them so often and see no change. You may even become the person others avoid, not out of cruelty, but because they associate you with negativity. Your presence begins to feel heavy rather than uplifting. People admire those who rise above challenges, not those who stay stuck in them and expect sympathy as a substitute for action. Furthermore, constantly talking about problems drains your own mental energy. Every time you rehash a negative experience, you reopen emotional wounds and relive pain that could otherwise be processed and moved through. It becomes a cycle. Talk, feel worse, seek validation, talk more. Instead of using your mental resources to think creatively or plan next steps, they get consumed by endless repetition of what's wrong. And while you may think you're just getting it off your chest, what you're actually doing is reinforcing powerlessness. Becoming a problem solver, on the other hand, shifts everything. It's not about denying your pain, it's about channeling it into productive action. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, what can I do about this? That shift in perspective takes you from victim to warrior, from stuck to strategic. People who take ownership of their struggles and work to overcome them are the ones who inspire change, not just in themselves, but in those around them. So when you catch yourself about to vent again, pause and ask, am I looking for a solution or just someone to agree with my frustration? That question alone can transform how you show up, not just to others, but to yourself. The goal isn't silence. The goal is progress. And progress begins the moment you stop repeating the problem and start reaching for the answer. True strength is often silent. It's about facing difficulties quietly and courageously. In a world that celebrates expression and visibility, silence can sometimes be misunderstood. People often associate speaking out with bravery and transparency, but there's a different kind of courage that doesn't always get recognized. The kind that doesn't seek applause, the kind that quietly endures, adapts, and overcomes without making a spectacle of struggle. This quiet strength is not about hiding pain or pretending everything is fine. It's about possessing the emotional discipline to carry your burdens with grace and resilience. There's an undeniable dignity in the ability to suffer with composure. It doesn't mean you're unaffected by pain, but rather that you've developed the inner maturity to handle it without needing constant reassurance or attention. Some of the strongest individuals you'll ever meet are not the loudest, the most expressive, or the ones constantly explaining their hardships. They're the ones who move forward with steady determination, despite what they carry inside. Their silence isn't a weakness, it's a form of self-respect. It's a choice not to let their suffering define the way others see them. Society often rewards drama more than discipline. We see people who publicize every setback, every betrayal, every challenge, gaining followers, sympathy, and validation. But the quiet ones, the people who are enduring losses, heartbreaks, illnesses, or pressure while still showing up, still working, still keeping their word, those are the ones demonstrating real strength. They don't need to advertise their struggle because their character speaks louder than words ever could. Being silently strong also protects your peace. The moment you share your problems with the wrong people, you invite unnecessary opinions, judgments, and sometimes even manipulation. Everyone has an opinion, but not everyone has wisdom. Not everyone who hears your pain will honor it. When you choose to deal with your challenges privately or with a very trusted few, you avoid the noise that can cloud your judgment. You're not silenced. You're selective. You're not suppressing. You're securing your energy. This kind of quiet resilience builds a powerful relationship with yourself. When you learn to be your own comfort, your own motivator, your own therapist in hard times, you become less dependent on others for emotional survival. That doesn't mean you don't need people. It means you don't collapse when they aren't there. It creates a foundation of inner strength that nothing and no one can take from you. You become calm under pressure, focused during crisis, and wise through pain. And in that calm silence, growth happens. You gain clarity, you sharpen your instincts, you become more thoughtful in your actions and less reactive to your emotions. You learn that strength is not always about how much noise you make, it's about how much weight you carry and still manage to move forward. Real power doesn't beg to be seen. It is known by its impact, not its volume. Seek solutions, not sympathy. When challenges arise, the initial reaction for many people is to seek comfort, to talk about the issue, to gain emotional support, and to hear someone say, "I understand," or "You're right to feel this way." While sympathy can offer temporary relief, it rarely brings real progress. In fact, relying too heavily on sympathy can create a cycle of emotional dependence where the focus stays on the problem rather than shifting to the possibilities for resolution. Sympathy feels good in the moment, but it doesn't move you forward. It holds you in place. It's important to acknowledge that we all need emotional support from time to time. But there is a critical difference between leaning on someone for strength and leaning on them to avoid facing our own responsibility. When you prioritize sympathy over solutions, you subconsciously allow the pain or the problem to become part of your identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who is always struggling, always stuck, and always needing reassurance. You get used to the comfort of being consoled, rather than the challenge of growing through what you are facing. Sympathy does not require action. It doesn't demand change. It simply says, yes, this is hard, but life demands more from us. It demands that we not only recognize when things are difficult, but also that we ask ourselves, what now? Real growth begins the moment we shift from emotional expression to practical intention. That's when solutions emerge, from the decision to take ownership rather than dwell in despair. Seeking solutions forces you to ask better questions. Instead of wondering why something happened to you, you start to explore what lessons you can take from it. Instead of asking, why don't people support me more, you begin to ask, what can I do to improve my situation? This mental shift builds resilience, focus, and discipline. You stop waiting for others to fix what's broken or to rescue you from discomfort. You become the person who faces difficulty with clarity and determination. Also, people respond differently to those who seek solutions. When you present a problem but pair it with a plan, or even just a willingness to try, others see you as empowered and proactive, not helpless or attention-seeking. It earns you respect. It attracts the right kind of support. Support that is based on your initiative, not your suffering. People are far more willing to help someone who is trying to climb out of a hole than someone who has made the hole their home. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging pain, but staying in pain for the sake of sympathy can turn that pain into a prison. You start to believe that as long as you are suffering, you are entitled to something: comfort, attention, validation. But life doesn't reward pain alone. It rewards those who are willing to transform that pain into progress. So instead of repeating your problems in search of sympathy, start asking, what's one small step I can take today to make this better? That one step may not solve everything, but it breaks the cycle of powerlessness. It redirects your energy from storytelling to solution building. Over time, those small steps add up. And you stop needing sympathy because you've developed something far greater: strength, clarity, and the confidence that you are capable of handling whatever life throws your way. Choose a few trusted people, like a therapist or mentor, to confide in. Not everyone, not every ear deserves your story. In difficult moments, it may feel natural to turn to whoever is available, to talk to friends, co-workers, or even acquaintances, hoping that sharing your burden will bring some sort of relief. But what many people fail to realize is that vulnerability, when not guarded by wisdom, can be misused, misinterpreted, or even weaponized. It's not about living in secrecy or emotional isolation, but about understanding the value of being selective with your personal truth. Not everyone who listens to you is doing so out of care. Some listen out of curiosity, others for entertainment, and some with the intention of using your words later, whether consciously or not. And the more people you share with, the more you risk losing control of your own narrative. Words spread, perspectives get twisted, and before long, something you shared in a moment of pain becomes public commentary, gossip, or a topic of judgment. What once felt like a private moment of release can turn into a source of regret. The truth is, emotional safety is not found in numbers. It's found in discernment. It's about having one or two people who have consistently shown that they can be trusted, who offer wise counsel without judgment, and who have your growth in mind, not just your comfort. A therapist, for instance, is trained to listen objectively, to help you untangle complex thoughts and to guide you toward clarity without projecting their own issues onto your situation. A good mentor can draw from experience, challenge your thinking in healthy ways, and hold you accountable while still offering empathy. These are the kind of people who help you grow, not stay stuck. By contrast, when you share your personal struggles with too many people, especially those who haven't earned your trust, you dilute the power of your own healing. You confuse yourself with too many opinions. One person says, "You're overreacting." Another says, "You're being too passive." A third offers advice that sounds good but completely ignores the context of your life. In the end, you're left not with clarity but with emotional clutter. Too many voices in your head. and very little peace in your heart. Being selective with who you confide in also deepens the quality of those relationships. When someone knows you've chosen to open up to them specifically, not out of habit but out of trust, it creates a bond that is meaningful and genuine. That person is more likely to take your words seriously, to treat your pain with care, and to offer you something real in return. It builds intimacy, not noise. Depth, not drama. There's a kind of power in privacy, not secrecy, but intentional privacy. It means you value your story enough not to hand it to everyone. You understand that healing is a sacred process, and not every listener is equipped to walk with you through it. By choosing a few trusted people to share your burdens with, you preserve your dignity, protect your energy, and create space for meaningful support, not just surface-level sympathy. Ultimately, your pain deserves a safe place to land, not just any place that will listen. And when you choose that place wisely, you open yourself to healing that is deeper, steadier, and far more transformative than anything public venting can offer. Vulnerability is important, but it should be intentional, not impulsive. In today's world, vulnerability is often encouraged, and rightly so. There is strength in being open, in allowing others to see that we are human, imperfect, and emotionally complex. True connection, after all, is born from honesty. But vulnerability, while powerful, is not something to be thrown around carelessly. When it becomes impulsive rather than thoughtful, it can lead to exposure instead of connection, regret instead of relief, and misunderstanding instead of support. There's a difference between choosing to be vulnerable and emotionally spilling without boundaries. Intentional vulnerability means you are aware of what you're sharing, why you're sharing it, and who you're sharing it with. It means you're grounded in your purpose for opening up, perhaps to heal, to gain insight, or to deepen a relationship. Impulsive vulnerability, on the other hand, often comes from a place of emotional overwhelm. It's the kind that happens when pain spills out without filter or foresight. When you're seeking immediate comfort, validation, or even attention without considering the long-term impact of that moment of sharing. People often confuse emotional transparency with strength. They think that the more raw and open they are, the more genuine they seem. But the truth is, not everyone is prepared to handle your truth, and not every environment is safe for it. Sharing deeply personal pain with people who haven't earned your trust, or in moments where emotional regulation is lacking, can backfire. It can lead to feeling judged, dismissed, or worse, used. The same vulnerability that was meant to connect can create distance when the other person is caught off guard, confused, or unsure how to respond. Being intentional about vulnerability requires emotional maturity. It means asking yourself a few important questions. Is this the right person to hear this? Is this the right time? Am I seeking clarity, support, or just a reaction? If you can't answer those questions honestly, it might be a sign to pause. Vulnerability is not just about what you feel in the moment. It's about what you're prepared to live with after the moment has passed. Will you feel empowered and supported, or exposed and ashamed? Another aspect of impulsive vulnerability is that it can become a habit, a way to deal with discomfort by oversharing instead of addressing the deeper issue. It creates a loop where the act of venting feels productive, but nothing actually changes. People may begin to see you as someone who is always emotional, always struggling, always seeking sympathy. And when that happens, your words lose weight, your story loses impact, and your credibility quietly erodes. Intentional vulnerability, by contrast, builds trust. When someone sees that you've chosen to open up thoughtfully, they listen differently. They respond with more care and attention because they know you don't take emotional sharing lightly. Your words carry meaning because they come from a place of self-awareness, not chaos. Over time, this builds deeper, more respectful relationships, ones rooted in mutual understanding, not emotional volatility. So while vulnerability is a valuable tool for growth and connection, it's one that must be handled with care. Like any powerful force, it requires direction and discipline. When you open up, do so with purpose. Choose your moments, choose your people, and above all, choose yourself by honoring your emotions in a way that supports your growth, protects your peace, and strengthens your sense of self. People may lose respect for you if you constantly appear overwhelmed or unable to cope. In today's fast-paced and demanding world, resilience is one of the most admired and sought-after qualities. Whether in personal relationships or professional environments, people naturally gravitate toward those who appear grounded, composed, and capable under pressure. On the other hand, when someone frequently broadcasts their emotional struggles, always seems to be falling apart, or perpetually leans on others to carry them through every challenge, it can slowly diminish how others perceive their strength, reliability, and competence. This isn't to say that showing emotion or asking for help is wrong. It absolutely isn't. However, there is a threshold. When emotional distress becomes the dominant theme of how you present yourself to others, it shapes the narrative of who you are in their eyes. You stop being seen as someone who has occasional hard days and instead become someone who is always in a state of emotional instability. This perception, once formed, can be difficult to shake. People may begin to question your ability to handle responsibilities, your judgment, and even your ability to support others. Over time, this can erode the trust and respect people initially had for you. In work environments, for example, it might cause colleagues or superiors to think twice before assigning you important tasks, fearing that stress might overwhelm you. In personal relationships, people may start keeping their distance emotionally, unsure if they'll be pulled into your constant emotional storms. While it may feel like expressing every internal struggle builds closeness, it can often do the opposite. It can exhaust the emotional capacity of those around you, making them feel like they are always being asked to rescue you. Respect is not just earned through accomplishments or status. It is deeply tied to emotional conduct. When people see that you can face challenges, process them with self-awareness, and continue moving forward without falling apart, their respect for you deepens. They may not know all the details of your struggles, but they notice the quiet strength with which you carry them. That silent strength often says more than words ever could. It reflects a sense of personal responsibility, maturity, and inner discipline, qualities that make people trust and admire you. On the other hand, appearing perpetually overwhelmed communicates the opposite message. It signals a lack of coping mechanisms or a dependence on others to function emotionally. This doesn't just make others uncomfortable. It can create a dynamic where they start seeing you as someone who drains rather than contributes. And once that dynamic sets in, even well-meaning people may begin to withdraw, limit their involvement, or offer surface-level support instead of true engagement. That's why it's so crucial to develop internal systems for managing emotional difficulty. Journaling, therapy, mindfulness, or talking with a trusted few, not the entire world, can help you process pain in healthy, constructive ways. When you do this, you show others, and more importantly yourself, that while life may shake you, it does not define you. You regain control over how you're perceived and preserve the respect that is built not from being unshakable, but from knowing how to navigate storms without collapsing. Everyone has moments of vulnerability, but those who rise from them with grace and composure are the ones who command long-term respect. They don't need to constantly prove their strength. Their quiet resilience speaks for itself.